Okay, so first of all, thanks for joining. Um, Much appreciate your time for joining this presentation and talking about user experience again. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how user research creates team alignment, and why is that important to our projects and our work. First of all, let me present myself. So I'm Andre. I'm a senior UX designer. I have more than 6 years of experience in user experience, and half of the time I've been at Vola.ro, which was at that time one of the biggest online travel agencies in Romania. And then I went to Cognizant Subvision, and since then I've been working for the client named ACT. I know some of you might heard of it. It's American College Testing, and it's one of the biggest organizations that administers the national that administers the test with the same name in United States, and not only. Okay, so moving forward, this is one of what we've gonna discuss today. So first of all, we're gonna discuss why team members need to be aligned. Why is that important to our projects? And then I'm gonna present you 3 activities that can be done to create team alignment. And we're gonna discuss how they work and why are they important and when to be applied in your projects. Okay, so why team members need to be aligned actually? I mean, what that means, in fact, why is that important? Well, I think all of you have been part of this kind of meetings, brainstorming sessions, you name them, where everybody has its own opinion. And they are valid. That's not the problem. The problem is that these kind of discussions are uh, in a very unfacilitated manner, unstructured. Everybody shares their opinion, and nobody actually understands what's happening there. And at the end of the meeting, you're leaving the room and you're more confused than before. You know, those kind of quotes like, I think we should make a mobile version, our users don't scroll, nobody will want this feature, ask my wife. Well, or desktop is the most important platform. And in the end, actually, from all of these opinions, suggestions, solutions, the highest paid person's opinion comes in place and says, we will do this and we will do that, period. And then everybody is frustrated because, you know, their opinion is not listened, they are not valued, and they feel unproductive. And these kind of conversations take a lot of time, and because of that, a lot of money is wasted from a business perspective. And in the end, both parties lose, both the business and also the user, which is our ultimate person that uses the application. And the users loses because the users lose because the experience they because their experience with using the app is a bad one. Okay, so what we can do about that, how we can solve this kind of unstructured conversations? Well, there is a very straightforward way to do that, and that's by facilitating discussions. It's a team effort. This is by no means, uh, uh, I don't know, you going into a corner of the room and doing UX design. That doesn't happen. I mean, it's a team effort. Everybody should be involved, from the stakeholders, I don't know, the clients, whoever participates in that meeting, the development, the product management, and so on. And it's okay if you don't want to facilitate them, but somebody from your team should do that. But it's important to know what activities you need to do to structure these kind of conversations that tend to be lengthy and unproductive for your work. Okay, so what options do we have actually? The first one would be the problem framing workshop. It sounds fancy. Actually, it's very, very easy. Um, but first of all, what's problem framing? So problem framing is a design thinking method. It's to understand, define, and prioritize complex business problems and help us make better decisions faster. Um, this kind of problems are already spoken inside the brainstorming sessions, but the idea is that they are unstructured and they don't have the same form uh, in order to be compared and understood by everybody. I know Einstein, we know Einstein for sure, and he's rumored to have said that he would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and then 5 minutes finding the solution. I tend to believe that he said that because we know that he found out a lot of solutions for our physics, and because of that, we are knowing more and more about our planets and all the other stuff that are among us. So basically, he said that he would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and then finding the solution. This is counterintuitive at first glance, but it makes perfect sense. So, how a problem framing workshop uh, should be should be defined. First of all, everybody should write problem statements. Then we map those statements, we vote, and this is the most critical part, the mapping and the voting actually. And then we assess what can go wrong if the problem is not solved. So the first step, writing problem statements. How actually we should write problem statements? Well, a problem statement is composed of 4 elements, the 4 whys. So the who is experiencing the problem, what is the problem, where does the problem occur, are there any other people involved, and why does it matter? So let me give you an example. We cannot focus on the mobile version right now because our development resources are limited and this would affect our scope. As you can see, we have the who, that are we as a business. What is the problem? We cannot focus on the mobile version right now because our development resources are limited. So it happens on the human resources part. And why does it matter? Because that would affect our scope. That would affect our business. Okay, what do we do with all these statements after everybody is laying them down on the table, on the post-its? Okay, so now you need to create a XY grid on a whiteboard with the high-low impact on one axis and the high-low cost on one axis. And this is where the magic happens, because this kind of problem statement was happening before in our brainstorming sessions, but this kind of prioritizing them by voting and by mapping them on a grid didn't happen. And nobody actually was aware of which was the most important, which one should we do right now, or which one should we leave it for later. This is where the magic happens. And this is why it's so important to be a team effort. The voting is a team effort. The mapping is a team effort. Everybody should be involved. Everybody should be aware uh, about the problems. Okay, so what's next after we map and vote them? We assess what can go wrong if the problem is not solved. So you should define for the most voted problems, what is the success definition, what KPIs do we need to measure, and what happens if we fail. Those are 3 key elements that show us if that problem is solved on a long term or not, what happens if we fail to solve it, and so on. Okay, that would be one activity that we can do, but there are 2 more that I want to present to you. So that would be the value proposition canvas mapping, and I'm pretty sure you've heard about it. It's not rocket science. First of all, let's explain what value proposition canvas is about. So it's a tool which can help ensure that a product or service is positioned around what the customer values and needs are. You can see that the value proposition canvas has 2 distinct parts. which are the value proposition and the customer profile. The value proposition is linked with the customer profile by game creators, product and services, and pain relievers. Going forward, let's describe about the value map. So as I mentioned, it has game creators, pain relievers, and products and services. And let me explain what they mean. So the products and services are the most basic things that allow the user to do their jobs. Like I would like to book a plane ticket, and a service like booking.com, for example, allows me to book a plane ticket or a hotel or whatever they offer you as a user. The pain relievers are a description of exactly how the product or service alleviates customer pains. For example, I want to make sure that I get the best price, and that's a pain for me to start searching on Google every single hotel or airline for the best price, and that's a pain reliever for me. I have one place to search for everything. And the gain creators, how the product or service creates customer gains and how it offers added value for the customer. Well, actually, the gain creators are the ones that create delight and help users to come back and also create engagement for them. Going forward, after describing the value proposition, going forward to the customer profile, you can see that there are also three sections which are linked together with the value map, and that will be the gains, the pains, and the customer jobs. The customer jobs, as I've described, are the ones that are the most basic needs for the customer. Like I've just described, I would like to book a plane ticket. The pains, as I mentioned, the fact that I have to search for every hotel and every airline on the Google, and also the gains, which are the ones that create delight and are increasing the likelihood of adoption of value proposition. Now that we've described both of them, it's very important to mention that, first of all, you need to create the value map from a business perspective. And then the customer profile needs to be done only after, and I want to emphasize on this, only after you do your research. So the customer profile is not something that you as a business start completing from assumptions, because that would be wrong. I mean, what's the point of the value map of the value proposition canvas if you're just assuming the customer profile? You actually need to do your user research before, and then start completing the customer profile. And the objective of a value proposition canvas is to see if the value proposition from a business perspective is also validated with the customer profile. So if the needs of the user are the ones that you can solve as a business. So that's key for the value proposition canvas. Your customer profile needs to be done based on real facts, user research, I don't know, whatever activity do you want, usability testing on a paper prototype, or I don't know, interviews, surveys, whatever works for you as a business, whatever is faster and makes sense to you. But it should be done based on user research. Okay, the next one and the last activity that we can do, that would be the assumption mapping. And I find this the most entertaining one. Let me first describe it, what's an assumption mapping. So it's a practice of identifying the risky assumptions being made about a new product, service, or feature. What's the idea behind? Well, the idea behind is to understand the assumptions and see if they are important or they are easy to validate or not. So as you can see, we have two diagrams here, two grids. The first one would be with known and unknown on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, the important and unimportant. And the next one would be with the risky and less risky and difficult to validate and easy to validate. So how should we start with this mapping? So we start with the topic, uh, any topic you like that makes sense for your business, and you start making assumptions. I mean, you start making assumptions. Everybody in the team starts making assumptions. As I mentioned, this is a team effort. So you start making assumptions, and then you assess the importance and knowledge of it. So I assess if this assumption is important or not, and it's if it's known or unknown from a fact perspective. It's a fact that I'm assuming this, or we kind of don't know. We need to do some research on it. Number four, we assess the risk of an assumption and how easy it is to validate. So an assumption, for example, users are not using the mobile version, will not use the mobile version of the app. This is risky because you might find that users actually use that mobile version, and you kind of uh, you don't earn revenue from the mobile users. So this is a risky one. This is a risky assumption to do, and that would be ranked as a risky one. And the difficult to validate, this is mainly up to your business model, how you are doing your research, how easy it is to access your users. I don't know if you have already a database of users. If not, you should, I don't know, do anything else that works for you. What's the outcome of the value of the assumptions mapping? You generate questions and prioritize them. Research questions, actually. So with these assumptions, you create research questions like, do users use the mobile version of the app? And you go do your research and you come back and see, hey, we've answered this question. Yes, users do use the mobile version, or not, they do not use the mobile version. And suddenly the assumption, now it's a fact. Okay, so what happens after you've document everything, and what do you need to do? So as I mentioned, you need to conduct your research and test your assumptions. And there are two paths you can go. Your assumption is wrong, and you need to refine them and continue documenting until you feel confident with your data. Or your assumptions are validated and you're ready to turn them into factual statements. This is an ongoing process. It happens in a loop, and you're all and over again refining them. And as you're, I don't know, building your app or building your feature in the app, you start again and again and again to make assumptions and to validate or invalidate them. That's the whole point of this assumption mapping. Okay, so those are the three activities, and you might ask, okay, so your presentation title says how user research creates team alignment, but you actually presented us three activities that are not user research. How is that? How is that working? Well, let me tell you one thing. Before conducting any user research for your product, for your feature, for anything you're working on, as Einstein also mentioned, you need to define your problems and what you need to research, actually, what you need to ask your users, because you're not going to your users and ask them, hey, tell me everything you know. Everything you know about what? I mean, what are your KPIs? How do you know that is a success, your research? How do you know that you've learned something from the users, something relevant? So before conducting any user research, you actually need to define inside your team all the stuff that need to be understood before research. That would be the problems that we want to solve, what assumptions do we have, and what's our value proposition. And after you define that, and after your whole team is aligned around the same problems, the same assumptions, everybody was involved in the process, then you can go and do your research and come back with the facts, and then you can go and refine them, or refine the problems and assumptions, or go ahead and continue your development. that's a healthy process from my perspective. Of course, there are a lot of other activities that can be done in the discovery phase and this alignment stuff. But I find those three to be the most productive in my case. And yeah, you should discover others also, but that's a starting point for sure. Okay, in the end, I want to mention you something that's very important from my point of view. Um, that we are responsible more than ever for our design decisions. And we are responsible about the impact that our design can have on people's lives. And what that means actually, uh, we as a team are creating products, products that impact our lives. We know that we have a lot of social media applications that we know that create a lot of bad stuff. Sometimes dependencies, or I don't know, people are sad about seeing pictures with I don't know pretty faces out there with filters and so on. So we have a lot of power when it comes to manipulate and be persuasive about what users can do in the application. So we need to be responsible with that. Uh, Ethics, from my point of view, is the new thing, and is actually the the new the new stuff inside user experience. So people are more concerned about their privacy, about being deceived, or uh, applications misleading them. So as soon as they find that out, they're going to leave your product for sure. So ethics and responsibility are the most important things from my point of view when designing an application and designing user experience. Yep, that's it. Thank you very much. And let's see if we have any questions. Any questions in the Q&A section. Okay, so we have one question. How can teams overcome bias when formulating UX questions? That's a good one. Actually, they can overcome bias when formulating UX questions because the whole team participates to that process. I mean, it's not just about one person or two persons that can formulate those questions, and that's why, because everybody is participating to that workshop, kind of, you know, overcomes the bias thing that happens. It's normal. I mean, it's fine. Quantity of bias, let's say, but because everybody is participating, the bias is kept at a low. Okay, I think that those are all the questions in the Q&A chat. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate the effort of being here with me and discussing this. You can find me on LinkedIn with the same name. We can discuss there more. Other than that, thank you and have a great day.